Millionaire found an abandoned child with a baby, and he took them to his house. The next day, the police arrived. What if the coldest heart could be softened by the warmth of a child's smile? Imagine a world where a ruthless billionaire's life is turned upside down by two abandoned children on a fateful night. Tonight, we dive into a tale of unexpected love, dangerous secrets, and a man's journey from the pinnacle of wealth to the depths of true richness. Buckle up for a roller coaster ride of emotions as we explore how the innocence of a child can melt even the iciest of hearts and redefine the meaning of success. Are you ready to witness a transformation that will challenge everything you thought you knew about power, family, and redemption? The millionaire had found an abandoned child with a baby, and he took them to his house. The next day, the police became involved. The city lights flickered like distant stars, forming a glittering tapestry spread out before Gabriel Thornton as he stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse office. At the age of 53, Gabriel was a man who had reached what many would consider the pinnacle of success: wealth, power, and a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city. Yet, as he gazed out at the urban landscape below, he could not shake the persistent feeling of emptiness that had been his constant companion for years. His life, entirely centered on his businesses, lacked something he could not quite define. Although the silence of his office usually brought comfort, it felt oppressive that night. Turning away from the window, his eyes scanned the room, a space that had witnessed countless deals and decisions shaping his empire. The dark wood paneling and leather furnishings spoke of old money and influence. Yet to Gabriel, they were merely reminders of the steep cost at which his success had come. Moving towards his desk, Gabriel's gaze fell upon a face-down photo frame. With a hesitant hand, he reached out and turned it over to reveal the smiling face of a younger girl alongside his former business partner, Dominic Blackwood. A wave of regret washed over him as memories of their bitter fallout flooded his mind. "You'll regret this, Gabriel." Dominic's words echoed ghost-like in his thoughts. A reminder of the day he had ruthlessly pushed his friend out of their shared company, a defining moment when he had chosen ambition over loyalty and profit over friendship. Setting the frame back down, this time facing up, served as a scar he no longer wished to hide. For years he had buried the guilt and focused solely on building his empire. Yet the weight of his past actions had never truly left him. With a heavy sigh, Gabriel moved to the minibar tucked in the corner of his office. The amber liquid splashed into a crystal tumbler, promising a momentary respite from his spiraling thoughts. As he raised the glass to his lips, his phone buzzed insistently on his desk. Frowning, he walked over to glance at the screen. It was a message from his security team about a disturbance near one of his downtown properties. On any other night, he might have delegated the matter to his staff, but tonight, driven by an inexplicable restlessness, Gabriel decided to attend personally. Donning his coat and heading for the elevator, he could not shake the feeling that something was about to change. The city sprawled before him, a labyrinth of lights and shadows holding secrets yet to be uncovered. Little did he know that this night would mark the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he had built and everything he thought he knew about himself. As the elevator doors closed silently behind him, carrying him toward a destiny he could never have anticipated, Gabriel Thornton, the man who prided himself on always being in control, was about to have his world turned upside down. The sleek, black car glided through the city streets. Its quiet hum stood in stark contrast to the turmoil raging in Gabriel's mind. The rhythmic sweep of street lights across the car's interior created a hypnotic effect, lulling him into a trance-like state on this cold night, one that seemed to seep into his bones despite the comfort of the luxurious vehicle. Nearing the location of the reported disturbance, Gabriel found himself in a part of the city he rarely visited. The opulence of his world had no place here. The streets were darker, and the buildings more worn. He slowed the car, his eyes scanning the sidewalks for any sign of the disturbance mentioned by his security team. Suddenly, the headlights illuminated a scene that made Gabriel slam on the brakes under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. He saw a small figure huddled on the sidewalk, a child barely visible in the faint light and cold mist. Next to whom, wrapped in a worn blanket, was a baby. Gabriel froze, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, as this was not a scene he had expected to encounter. For a moment, he did not know how to react. The child, who could not have been more than 6 years old, looked up when the car's headlights shone on him. There was something in the child's expression, a mix of fear and hope, that pierced through the emotional armor Gabriel had built over the years. After a moment's hesitation, Gabriel turned off the engine and stepped out of the car. The cold immediately bit through his expensive coat as he approached the children cautiously, trying not to seem intimidating. "Hello," he said softly. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The boy looked at him, but did not answer. His large, wary eyes were filled with understandable distrust mixed with weariness beyond his years, while the baby in his arms stirred slightly but remained asleep. Crouching down to bring himself to the boy's eye level, Gabriel introduced himself. "My name is Gabriel. What's yours?" After a long pause, the boy whispered, "Ethan." Gabriel repeated the name gently, offering a soft smile, and then asked, "Who's this?" Nodding toward the baby, Ethan replied, "Noah." With Ethan's grip on the baby tightening protectively as he explained that Noah was his brother, Gabriel's mind raced. He knew he should call the authorities, yet something held him back. The fear in Ethan's eyes and the protective way he held his brother stirred something deep within Gabriel, a long-dormant instinct to protect. "It's not safe for you and Noah to be out here," Gabriel said kindly. "Would you like to come with me? I could take you somewhere warm and safe." Ethan's eyes widened, a mix of hope and suspicion battling within them, as he declared, "You won't separate us." The question hit Gabriel like a punch to the gut. What had these children been through to make that their primary concern? "No," he said firmly, "I promise I won't separate you." After what seemed like an eternity, Ethan nodded slowly. Gabriel helped him up, noticing how the boy's thin frame shivered in the cold night air. As they walked to the car, Gabriel shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around Ethan and Noah. Once inside the car, with the heat blasting, Gabriel found himself at a loss. What was he doing? He should have been calling child services instead of taking two strange children to his home. Yet, as he glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Ethan's exhausted face and Noah sleeping peacefully, Gabriel knew he could not bring himself to hand them over to the system. Not tonight. The drive back to the mansion was silent. Ethan asked no questions, and Gabriel himself had no clear answer, his thoughts shifting endlessly as he tried to understand why he had helped these children. Yet, amidst the torment of unasked questions, he felt a strange peace, as if he had done something instinctively right. When the gates of his mansion came into view, Gabriel made a decision. He would give the children a safe place for the night, and in the morning he would figure out the right thing to do. Little did he know that this simple act of kindness would set in motion a chain of events that would change his life forever. Upon arriving at the mansion, with the car's headlights illuminating the grand facade, Gabriel looked back at Ethan and Noah, now asleep in the back seat, and felt an unfamiliar tug at his heart for the first time in years. Gabriel Thornton, the man who had built an empire on cold, hard decisions, found himself acting purely on emotion, an act that both terrified and exhilarated him. The Thornton mansion, usually a bastion of silence and order, was now filled with an unfamiliar tension. Gabriel stood in the doorway of the guest room, watching as Miss Eleanor Winters, his longtime housekeeper, fussed over Ethan and Noah. The children, freshly bathed and dressed in oversized T-shirts that hung like dresses on their small frames, looked utterly out of place in the opulent surroundings. Mr. Thornton and Mrs. Winters exchanged concerned whispers. "Are you sure about this? Shouldn't we inform the authorities?" Gabriel's jaw tightened. It was the question he had been asking himself all night. "Not yet, Elena. Let's give them a night of peace first. We'll figure it out in the morning," he replied, and after Mrs. Winters nodded and left the room, Gabriel found himself alone with the children. Ben, sitting on the edge of the bed, darted his eyes around the room as if searching for hidden dangers, while Noah, oblivious to the tension, gurgled happily in a makeshift crib. "You're safe here," Gabriel said, his voice uncharacteristically tender as he urged them to get some sleep. Ethan nodded silently, his eyes never leaving Gabriel's as he backed out of the room. Leaning against the wall in the hallway, Gabriel exhaled heavily, wondering what he had gotten himself into. The next morning brought no clarity. Gabriel awoke to the unfamiliar sound of a baby's cry echoing through the mansion. For a moment, he was disoriented. The events of the previous night felt like a strange dream, but as he made his way downstairs, the reality of his impulsive decision hit him full force. In the kitchen, he found a scene of domestic chaos. Miss Winters was attempting to feed Noah, who seemed more interested in redecorating the kitchen with pureed carrots, while Ethan sat at the counter, watching the proceedings with a mix of amusement and anxiety. "Good morning, Gabriel," Ethan said, his tone that of a stranger in his own home. Suddenly, Ethan's head snapped up, his body tensing visibly as he asked, "Are you going to call the police now?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Gabriel was at a loss for words. The logical part of his mind screamed that he should call the authorities and wash his hands of this complicated situation, yet something held him back. "Not yet," he finally said, surprising even himself. "But Ethan, I need to know what happened. Why were you and Noah out there alone?" Ethan's face clouded over, his young features hardening into a mask of distrust. "I can't tell you," he whispered. "He'll find us." This cryptic response sent a chill down Gabriel's spine. Who was this mysterious he that terrified Ethan so much? Before Gabriel could press further, the doorbell rang, shattering the tense atmosphere. Mrs. Winters hurried to answer it and returned moments later with a pale face. "Mr. Thornton," she said in a trembling voice, "there are police officers here to see you." Gabriel's heart rate spiked. How'd they known? Had someone seen him pick up the children? As he made his way to the foyer, he could hear Ethan's panicked breathing behind him. Two officers stood at the entrance with grave expressions. The female officer addressed him sharply. "Mr. Gabriel Thornton?" Gabriel replied calmly, though inwardly he felt shaken. "I'm Detective Olivia Reeves, and this is my partner, Detective Marcus Holloway. We're here regarding a report we received last night. A man matching your description was seen picking up two children from the streets. We need to ask you some questions." Gabriel's mind raced. He could feel the weight of Ethan's terrified gaze on his back. In that moment, he made a decision that would alter the course of his life. "Of course, detectives," he said smoothly. Years of business negotiations had taught him to remain calm under pressure. "Perhaps we could discuss this in my study. It's a rather delicate matter." Detective Reeves raised an eyebrow, then nodded as Gabriel led them to his study, while silently signaling to Mrs. Winters to keep the children out of sight. Once in the study, Gabriel faced the detectives with his heart pounding, yet his exterior calm. "I understand how this looks," he began, "but I assure you my intentions were purely to help those children." Detective Holloway interjected sternly. "Regardless of your intentions, taking children off the street is a serious matter. We need to know exactly what happened over the past night." Gabriel carefully recounted the events, deliberately omitting details that might lead the detectives to Ethan and Noah. As he concluded his account, he saw skepticism in their eyes, a silent question as to why a wealthy businessman would involve himself in such a matter. "I couldn't just leave them there. They were alone and scared. I just wanted to help," Gabriel said. Detective Reeves studied him intently. "While your actions may have been well-intentioned, we need to see the children to ensure their safety and to locate their family." Gabriel felt a moment of panic. He was not ready to hand Ethan and Noah over, especially since he sensed there was more to their story. Yet, he also knew he could not obstruct a police investigation. "They've been through a traumatic experience," he reasoned. "Perhaps we could arrange for a child psychologist to be present when you question them, to ensure their well-being." The detectives exchanged a look. Although it wasn't standard procedure, Detective Reeves agreed. "Actually, given the circumstances, that might not be a bad idea. We'll arrange for a specialist to come tomorrow. In the meantime, Mr. Thornton, the children will remain in your care. But understand, you're now part of an ongoing investigation." After the detectives left, Gabriel felt a mix of relief and apprehension. He had bought himself some time, But he knew the real challenges were just beginning. As he turned back toward the kitchen, he saw Ethan peeking around the corner, his eyes wide with fear and a glimmer of something else. Hope. In that moment, Gabriel realized he had unconsciously placed himself in the role of protector for these children. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with legal and emotional hurdles. But looking at Ethan's determined face, he knew he couldn't turn back now. Their fates were now intertwined for better or for worse. The following morning dawned with a sense of foreboding. Gabriel had spent a restless night, his mind churning with the implications of his actions and the impending arrival of the detectives, with a child psychologist in tow. As he made his way downstairs, he found Ethan already awake, sitting silently as if on guard, his watchful eyes following every move Gabriel made. "Good morning, Ethan," Gabriel said, trying to inject warmth into his voice. "Did you sleep well?" Ethan, with his head snapping up and his body tensing, asked in a small, defiant voice, "Is today when they come to take us away?" The question, delivered matter-of-factly, made Gabriel's heart clench. "No one is taking you away," he reassured, though he wasn't entirely sure how he would keep that promise. "Some people are coming to talk to you, but I'll be right here the whole time." Just then, the doorbell rang again. Mrs. Winters, who had been quietly preparing breakfast, moved to answer it and returned moments later accompanied by Detectives Reeves and Holloway, and a woman Gabriel assumed was the child psychologist. Detective Reeves greeted him. "This is Dr. Amelia Foster, a specialist in child psychology. She'll be assisting us today." Dr. Foster, a kind-faced woman in her 40s, smiled warmly at Ethan. "Hello there, you must be Ethan. I'm Dr. Foster, but you can call me Amelia if you like." Ethan remained silent, his eyes darting between the newcomers and Gabriel. Noah, sensing the tension in the room, began to fuss in his high chair. Gabriel suggested, "Perhaps we could move this to the living room," in an attempt to take control of the situation and create a more comfortable environment. Once settled in the living room, with Ethan perched on the edge of the sofa next to Gabriel and Noah safely in Gabriel's arms, the questioning began. Dr. Foster took the lead, her gentle voice and patient demeanor slowly coaxing responses from Ethan. "Can you tell me a little about how you and Noah ended up on the street that night?" she asked softly, as Ethan's fingers twisted in the fabric of his shirt. "We had to run away," he whispered, adding, "Run away from where?" as Detective Reeves interjected, pen poised over a notepad. Ethan's eyes widened in fear, and he pressed closer to Gabriel, who instinctively wrapped an arm around him. "It's okay. You're safe here," Gabriel murmured reassuringly. Dr. Foster gave a warning look to Detective Reeves before turning back to Ethan. "You're very brave for protecting your little brother. Can you tell us who you were running from?" Ethan shook his head vigorously, tears welling up in his eyes. "I can't," he choked out. "He always finds us." The room fell silent, the weight of Ethan's words hanging heavy in the air. Gabriel felt a chill run down his spine, wondering who this mysterious he was that terrified Ethan so much. Detective Holloway cleared his throat and said, "Ethan, we want to help you and Noah, but to do that, we need to know more. Can you at least tell us your last name?" Looking up at Gabriel with a silent plea, Ethan nodded slowly and whispered, "Our last name is Blackwood." The name hit Gabriel like a physical blow. Blackwood could not be a coincidence. His mind raced back to the photograph on his desk and the face of Dominic Blackwood, his former friend and business partner, who had never mentioned having children. "What is going on?" Detective Reeves asked sharply. "Is your father's name Dominic Blackwood?" At this, Ethan's reaction was immediate and visceral. He let out a small, frightened cry and buried his face in Gabriel's side, while Noah, picking up on his brother's distress, began to wail. "I think that's enough for now," Gabriel said firmly, pulling both children closer, as they were clearly upset. Dr. Foster nodded in agreement. "We've made good progress today, Ethan. You've been very brave. We might need to talk again soon, okay?" As the detectives and Dr. Foster prepared to leave, Detective Reeves pulled Gabriel aside. "Mr. Thornton, a word in private, please, away from Ethan's ears." In the study, Detective Reeves fixed Gabriel with an intense stare. "Do you recognize that name?" Dominic Blackwood. Gabriel hesitated, weighing his words carefully. We were business partners years ago, but I had no idea he had chosen to have children. Our association ended badly. Detective Holloway interjected. How badly? Gabriel ran a hand through his hair and replied, I pushed him out of our company. It wasn't my finest moment, but that was over a decade ago. I haven't heard from him since. Detective Reeves slowly said, Dominic Blackwood has been on our radar for some time after your business disagreement. He fell off the grid. There have been rumors of his involvement in some less-than-legal activities, nothing concrete. And now his children turn up on the street. And you, of all people, find them. The implication hung in the air, and Gabriel felt a surge of indignation. Are you suggesting I had something to do with this? He demanded. I told you. I had no idea those were Dominic's children. We're not suggesting anything, Detective Holloway replied, though his tone implied otherwise. But you have to admit it's a remarkable coincidence. Gabriel's mind reeled. Could Dominic be behind all this somehow? Was it some elaborate scheme for revenge? And if so, why involve his own children? What happens now? Gabriel asked, suddenly feeling out of his depth. For now, the children will remain here, Detective Reeves stated, and you are now a person of interest in this investigation. Mr. Thornton, do not leave town. We'll be in touch. As the detectives left, Gabriel stood in the foyer, his world tilted on its axis. He had thought he was simply helping two abandoned children. Now he found himself entangled in a web of mystery with his past coming back to haunt him in unimaginable ways. From the living room, he could hear Ethan's quiet sobs and Mrs. Winter's soothing murmurs. Taking a deep breath, Gabriel steeled himself. Whatever was going on, whatever Dominic's involvement might be, one thing was clear. Ethan and Noah needed protection. And despite the risks and complications, Gabriel was determined to provide it, with renewed resolve. Over the following days, the Thornton mansion settled into an uneasy routine. Gabriel found himself navigating the unfamiliar waters of childcare, his once well-ordered life now punctuated by Noah's cries and Ethan's watchful silences. Despite the chaos, he felt an unfamiliar warmth growing in his chest every time Ethan's guard dropped just enough to offer a small smile or when Noah's tiny hand gripped his finger. Yet beneath this newfound domestic tranquility, a storm was brewing. The revelation of the children's connection to Dominic Blackwood had opened a Pandora's box of questions and suspicions. Gabriel spent his nights poring over old files and records, desperately searching for any clue that might shed light on Dominic's disappearance and subsequent activities. One evening, as Gabriel sat in his study, surrounded by stacks of papers, a soft knock at the door jolted him from his concentration. Ethan stood in the doorway, his small frame dwarfed by the grandeur of the room. Is everything okay? Gabriel asked quickly, hastily hiding the files he had been examining. The boy nodded hesitantly, admitting, I had a bad dream. His voice was barely above a whisper, and Gabriel felt a surge of protective instinct. Do you want to talk about it? He asked gently. Ethan shook his head, but did not leave. Instead, he shuffled into the room, his eyes roaming over the bookshelves and expensive decor. This room looks like his, Ethan murmured suddenly. Whose room? Gabriel's heart skipped a beat. Ethan, father, the boy replied, though his face clouded over as he hesitantly added, I had a big room like this with lots of books and a big desk. Seizing the opportunity, Gabriel gently pressed, Tell me more about your father, about what happened. With eyes widening in fear and a desperate need to unburden himself, Ethan stuttered. He used to be nice, but then he got angry all the time. He would shout at Mother and lock himself in his study for days. Gabriel listened intently, his mind racing. This did not sound like the Dominic he had known. Ambitious and cutthroat in business, certainly, but never violent or unstable. Then, one day, Ethan continued in a trembling whisper, Mother took us, and we left. We were hiding, moving from place to place, but he always found us. Is that why you were on the street that night? Gabriel asked gently. Ethan nodded, tears welling in his eyes, and added, Mother said we had to run again, but then she didn't come back. The implications of Ethan's words hit Gabriel like a physical blow. What had happened to the children's mother? And what had Dominic become to inspire such fear in his own family? Before Gabriel could ask further, the study phone rang, shattering the moment. Ethan flinched at the sound, retreating toward the door. "It's okay," Gabriel reassured him, reaching for the phone. "Why don't you go back to bed? I'll come check on you in a bit." After Ethan left, Gabriel answered the phone. His mind was still reeling from the boy's revelations when he heard Detective Reeves' tense and urgent voice. "We need to talk. Can you come down to the station?" The police station was a flurry of activity, even at that late hour. Gabriel was ushered into an interview room where Detectives Reeves and Holloway waited with grim expressions. "What's this about?" Gabriel asked, a sense of foreboding settling over him. Detective Reeves slid a folder across the table. "We've uncovered some disturbing information about Dominic Blackwood. After your business disagreement, he disappeared. When he reappeared, he was a changed man." Gabriel opened the folder, his eyes widening as he scanned its contents. Police reports, financial records, and surveillance photos painted a picture of a man descending into a world of crime and violence. Blackwood got involved with dangerous people, money laundering, extortion, possibly worse. We've been building a case against him for years, but he's always managed to stay one step ahead. And now, with the children in my care, Gabriel's voice trailed off, the weight of the situation settling heavily on his shoulders. "Do you think he's behind their appearance? Some kind of trap for you?" Detective Holloway asked, leaning forward with intensity. "It's possible," replied Detective Reeves, "but there's more. We found evidence suggesting Blackwood might have been tracking your movements for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. We're not sure what his endgame is." A chill ran down Gabriel's spine. For years he had been living his life, building his empire, unaware that his old friend turned enemy had been watching from the shadows. "There's something else," Holloway added gravely. "We've been unable to locate the children's mother. Given Blackwood's history, we fear the worst." Gabriel thought of Ethan's words. "Mother said we had to run again, but then she didn't come back," and his heart ached for the children and the trauma they must have endured. "What do we do now?" Gabriel asked, feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of the situation. "We need to keep the children safe, and we need to draw Blackwood out. He's bound to make a move soon now that his children are with you," Detective Reeves stated firmly. Gabriel felt a strange mix of fear and determination. Unknowingly, he had stepped into a dangerous game with stakes higher than any business deal he had ever negotiated. As he left the police station, his mind whirled with thoughts and emotions. The cool night air did little to calm his racing heart as he drove back to the mansion. He had always prided himself on being in control and having a plan for every contingency, but now he felt adrift in uncharted waters. Pulling up to the mansion, he saw a light on in Ethan's room, a sight that grounded him and reminded him of what was truly at stake. These children, innocent victims of their father's descent into darkness, had found their way to him against all odds. Gabriel made a decision then and there, standing in the driveway of his opulent home. He would do whatever it took to keep Ethan and Noah safe, to give them the stability and love they so desperately needed, even if it meant confronting the ghosts of his past and putting himself in danger. That night, as Gabriel entered the mansion, he felt a profound shift within himself. The cold, calculating businessman was giving way to something else, a protector, a guardian. Although he did not know what challenges lay ahead or what dangers Dominic Blackwood might pose, he knew with absolute certainty that he would not let these children down. Over the following days, the stakes had never been higher, and for the first time in years, Gabriel Thornton felt truly alive. In the days that followed, the mansion became fraught with tension. Gabriel was constantly on edge, his eyes darting to every shadow and his ears straining for every unfamiliar sound. The burden of protecting Ethan and Noah, coupled with the looming threat of Blackwood, took its toll. On a particularly stressful afternoon, while on a conference call with his company's board of directors, Gabriel overheard a muffled conversation from the hallway. Excusing himself, he approached the door, straining to catch the words. "Can't keep this up much longer. He's getting suspicious." Gabriel froze, his hand on the doorknob. Who was she talking to, he wondered. A man's low, gruff voice responded, "You know what's at stake, Eleanor. Just a little longer. We're almost there." With his heart pounding, Gabriel burst into the hallway, but found it empty save for Miss Winters, who jumped at his sudden appearance, her face pale. "Mr. Thornton, is everything all right? I heard voices," she stammered, fluttering her hand to her chest. "You startled me. I was just talking to myself," she added apologetically. Gabriel studied her face, noting the sheen of sweat and a slight tremor in her hands. Could Miss Winters be involved in something sinister? "My apologies for startling you," he said smoothly, deciding to play along. Later that night, after ensuring that Ethan and Noah were safely asleep, Gabriel set his plan in motion. He pretended to retire to his room early, but instead made his way silently to the security room, where he could monitor the entire mansion. Hours passed, and Gabriel began to wonder if he had imagined the whole thing, until he saw movement on one of the screens. Miss Winters was in the kitchen, but rather than following her usual routine, she was hunched over a laptop, typing furiously. Gabriel zoomed in, catching the words on the screen. "The children are still here. Thornton suspects nothing. When will you make your move?" His worst fears were confirmed. Without hesitation, Gabriel called Detective Reeves immediately, his voice low and urgent as he explained the situation. "Stay put," Reeves instructed. "We're on our way. Do not confront her alone." Watching Mississippi Winters close her laptop and move toward the children's room, Gabriel's heart pounded. He raced through the mansion and reached the hallway just as Miss Winters was about to enter Ethan and Noah's room. "Eleanor," he called out, his voice echoing in the quiet corridor. Miss Winters spun around, her eyes wide with shock and fear. "Mr. Thornton, I was just checking on the children. No more lies, Eleanor," Gabriel said sharply. "I know you've been communicating with Blackwood. How long has this been going on?" For a moment, Miss Winters seemed ready to deny it, but then her shoulders sagged in defeat. "I had no choice," she whispered. "He knew things about me, about my past, and he threatened to ruin me if I didn't help him." Gabriel felt a mix of anger and betrayal. "And the children? Were you going to hand them over to him?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt them. I thought I could find a way out for Blackwood. He's not the man he used to be. He's dangerous, Mr. Thornton, more dangerous than you know." Before Gabriel could respond, the sound of sirens filled the air. Detective Reeves and her team burst into the mansion, quickly taking control of the situation. Miss Winters was led away in handcuffs, and as her eyes met Gabriel's one last time, she mouthed, "I'm sorry," with genuine remorse etched on her face. Gabriel watched her go, a storm of emotions raging within him. The betrayal was deep, but a growing sense of dread also emerged. If Blackwood could turn his most trusted employee against him, what else was he capable of? Detective Reeves then approached with a grim expression. "We need to move the children immediately. This location is compromised." Gabriel nodded, his mind already racing ahead. "I have a property upstate. It's isolated and secure. We can go there," he said as he turned to wake Ethan and Noah. Gabriel felt the weight of responsibility settle even more heavily on his shoulders. The game had changed yet again, and the stakes were higher than ever. Looking at the sleeping faces of the children he had grown to care for so deeply, Gabriel knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would do whatever it took to keep them safe, no matter the cost. The safe house, nestled in the countryside, was a far cry from the opulence of Gabriel's mansion. Standing on the porch, watching Ethan and Noah explore the surrounding woods under the watchful eye of a plainclothes officer, Gabriel felt a strange mix of relief and tension. They were away from the immediate danger, but he knew the respite was only temporary. Later, on the porch, Detective Olivia Reeves joined him, offering 2 steaming mugs. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked. Gabriel, with a rueful smile, replied, "I keep thinking about how I went from being a CEO to feeling like I'm in a witness protection program." Olivia chuckled softly, though her eyes remained serious. "You've taken on quite a responsibility with those kids, Mr. Thornton. It's admirable. But I have to ask why. You could have walked away at any point." Gabriel's gaze drifted back to Ethan and Noah. "I'm not sure I can explain it," he said softly. "But when I found them that night, something clicked inside me. A part of me I didn't know was missing." Olivia studied him intently, her professional mask slipping for a moment to reveal a hint of admiration. "You're full of surprises, Gabriel," she said. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air between them seemed to crackle with an unexpected tension. Gabriel even noticed the glimmer of gold in Olivia's brown eyes, the way her hair caught the late afternoon sunlight. Clearing his throat, he changed the subject. "Any news on Blackwood's whereabouts?" Olivia's expression turned serious once more. "Nothing concrete. He's gone aground, but with Miss Winters in custody, we're hoping she'll give us something we can use." As they discussed the case, Gabriel couldn't help but be impressed by Olivia's sharp mind and dedication. She was unlike any law enforcement officer he had ever met. Tough, no nonsense, yet compassionate in her interactions with Ethan and Noah. Over the next few days, a routine began to develop at the safe house. Gabriel found himself working remotely, juggling conference calls and emails, while simultaneously helping Ethan with his reading and playing with Noah. Olivia was a constant presence, dividing her time between coordinating the investigation and assisting with the children. One evening, after the kids had fallen asleep, Gabriel and Olivia sat on the porch in comfortable silence, though charged with unspoken tension. "You're really good with them," Olivia remarked suddenly. "I mean, it's not what I expected." Gabriel raised an eyebrow and asked, "And what did you expect, Detective Reeves?" Olivia, with a slightly embarrassed smile, admitted, "Honestly, I thought you'd be out of your depth. All the reports I'd read painted you as a cold, calculating businessman. But the man I see here is full of surprises." Gabriel softly replied, "Sometimes people even surprise themselves." The air between them thickened, and Gabriel found himself leaning in slightly. Olivia's breath caught, her eyes widening. But before anything more could happen, a cry from inside the house shattered the moment. It was Ethan, caught in the throes of another nightmare. Both rushed inside to comfort him, leaving Gabriel with a mix of relief and frustration. He wondered what almost happened on that porch and, more importantly, what it would mean for their already complicated situation. The next morning, an awkward tension lingered between Gabriel and Olivia. They moved about carefully, hyper-aware of every accidental brush or lingering glance. "We need to talk about last night," Olivia finally said as she cornered Gabriel in the kitchen while the children were occupied with a board game. Gabriel nodded slowly, maintaining a careful mask. "I agree. It was unprofessional. It won't happen again." Olivia's eyes flashed with hurt and disappointment before her professional demeanor returned. "Of course, we need to focus on the case and the children's safety. Nothing can compromise that." As she turned to leave, Gabriel felt an irrational urge to stop her, to explain that his words did not match the turmoil in his heart. But he remained silent, watching her walk away. In the days that followed, their interactions became a delicate dance of professionalism and suppressed emotions. Gabriel threw himself into caring for the children and managing his company from afar, while Olivia redoubled her efforts on the investigation. Despite their best efforts, the undercurrent of attraction remained simmering just below the surface. It all came to a head one night when a breakthrough in the case had Olivia working late into the night. Gabriel found her in the makeshift office, surrounded by files and empty coffee cups. "You should get some rest," he said softly, leaning against the door frame. Olivia looked up, her eyes red-rimmed from fatigue, and replied, "I can't. We're so close to pinning down Blackwood's location. I can feel it." Gabriel moved into the room, perching on the edge of the desk. "You're no good to anyone if you burn out." "Olivia," he cautioned, using her first name with tender concern. Olivia stood slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "Why do you care so much?" she whispered, a question that seemed to encompass not just the case or the children, but the undeniable pull between them. Gabriel's voice, low and intense, replied, "Somewhere along the way, you've become important to me." That admission seemed to break something loose in both of them. In a heartbeat, Olivia was in Gabriel's arms, their lips meeting in a kiss that was equal parts passion and desperation. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Reality crashed back in as Olivia stepped away, her eyes wide with a mix of desire and panic. "We can't," she said shakily. "The case, the children. There's too much at stake." Gabriel nodded, his heart racing. "I know," he replied. "But when this is all over," he left his sentence hanging, a promise and a question all at once. Olivia met his gaze with a small, sad smile. "When this is all over," she echoed. "But for now, we focus on keeping Ethan and Noah safe." That night, as they returned to their respective rooms, both Gabriel and Olivia knew that everything had changed. The line between professional and personal had blurred, adding yet another layer of complexity to an already fraught situation. With Blackwood still at large and the children's safety hanging in the balance, they had no choice but to push their feelings aside and focus on the task at hand. Days at the safe house blended into weeks, and a strange sort of normalcy settled over the makeshift family. Gabriel found himself falling into a routine with Ethan and Noah. His heart warmed every time he saw a small smile or a gentle touch from the children. Yet, beneath this domestic tranquility, tensions simmered, and the memories of nightmares and hidden traumas remained. One evening, as Gabriel sat with Ethan on the porch swing, the boy finally began to unravel the mystery of his past. "I did something bad," Ethan whispered, his small frame tense against Gabriel's side. Gabriel's heart clenched, but he kept his voice steady. "What do you mean, Ethan?" The boy's eyes, wide and haunted, met Gabriel's as he recalled. "The night we ran away. Father was hurting Mother. I heard her screaming, and I went to his study. I knew where he kept his gun." The implications of Ethan's words hit Gabriel like a physical blow. "What happened next?" he asked softly. Through tears, Ethan confessed. I took the gun. I was so scared, but I wanted to protect Mother. When I got to their room, Father was standing over her. She wasn't moving. I pointed the gun at him, and then I pulled the trigger." Gabriel's mind raced. Surely, he thought, that could not be true. But the boy's trembling voice confirmed his worst fears. "There was so much blood. Father looked at me, and then he fell. I dropped the gun and ran to Mother, but she wouldn't wake up, so I took Noah and ran." The silence that followed was deafening. Gabriel's thoughts whirled as he tried to process the enormity of what Ethan had just revealed. This confession changed everything. "If Dominic Blackwood is dead," Gabriel said gently, pulling the boy closer, "you do what you thought you had to do to protect your mother and Noah. You're not bad. You were very, very brave." Ethan's sobs racked his small body as years of pent-up fear and guilt poured out, and Gabriel held him, feeling the heavy weight of this new knowledge settle on his shoulders. Later that night, after ensuring Ethan was finally asleep, Gabriel sought out Olivia. He found her in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee and poring over case files. "We need to talk," he said gravely. Olivia looked up with concern etched on her features. Gabriel relayed Ethan's confession, watching a mix of shock, disbelief, and grim understanding pass over her face. "If this is true," Olivia said slowly, "it changes everything. We've been operating under the assumption that Blackwood was alive and after the children. But if he's dead, then who's been after them?" Gabriel finished, and why. Olivia stood pacing the small kitchen, her mind racing. "We need to verify this. If Blackwood is dead, there should be a record, a body, unless someone covered it up." Gabriel mused that Blackwood had many connections and wondered what if someone in his organization found out what had happened and decided to use it to their advantage. After discussing theories and possibilities, Gabriel felt a growing sense of dread. The web of deceit and danger surrounding Ethan and Noah was more complex than they had imagined. With this new information, he became even more protective of the children. "What do we do about Ethan?" Gabriel asked, his voice laced with concern. "Legally speaking," Olivia explained softly, "if what he's saying is true, he's a child who was protecting his mother and baby brother from an abusive situation. No court would hold him accountable. But we need to get him some help, someone he can talk to about this trauma." Gabriel nodded with relief. I'll make some calls in the morning to arrange for a child psychologist to come out here. As they continue to discuss their next steps, Gabriel found himself marveling at Olivia's composure and compassion, even in the face of such shocking revelations. "You're amazing, you know that," he said softly before the words slipped out. Olivia looked up in surprise, her eyes flickering with warmth and something more. "I'm just doing my job," she replied, though a faint blush colored her cheeks as the tension between them grew palpable. Later, the sound of a car approaching at this late hour alerted them to an unexpected visitor. All personal feelings were immediately pushed aside in the face of potential danger. "Get the children," Olivia instructed, her hand moving to her holstered gun. "Take them to the safe room. I'll check it out." Gabriel rushed to wake Ethan and Noah, his heart pounding with fear and adrenaline, as he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change once again. The sanctuary they had found in the safe house was now under threat, and the dark secrets of the past were finally catching up to them. Gabriel hurried to the hidden safe room he had prepared for emergencies, sealing the door behind him. He sent up a silent prayer for Olivia's safety and for the strength to protect these children who had come to mean everything to him. In the darkness of that safe room, as he held the trembling forms of Ethan and Noah close, Gabriel Thornton, once a man who cared only for wealth and power, realized that he would gladly give up everything to keep these children safe. The game had changed, and so had he. Whatever came next, he would face it not as the ruthless businessman he once was, but as the protector and father figure he had become. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours before a soft knock on the door startled them. "It's me. It's safe to come out," came Olivia's voice, tinged with an emotion Gabriel couldn't quite place. Cautiously, he opened the door to find Olivia standing there, her face pale and drawn. Behind her stood a man whom Gabriel recognized immediately. Judge Harold Winters, one of the most respected and influential figures in the state's judicial system. "What are you doing here?" Gabriel asked, confusion evident in his voice. The judge's eyes flickered briefly to Ethan and Noah before settling back on Gabriel. "We need to talk, all of us," the judge said as they gathered in the living room. With Ethan and Noah safely tucked away in their bedroom under the watch of a trusted officer, the atmosphere grew thick with unspoken tension. "I suppose you're wondering why I'm here," Judge Winters began in his normally commanding yet subdued voice. "The truth is, I've been following your case closely, Gabriel, and recent developments have forced my hand." Detective Reeves leaned forward, her detective instincts at high alert. "What developments, Your Honor?" The judge sighed heavily. "There's no easy way to say this. The very system I dedicated my life to upholding is corrupt, and it goes deeper than you can imagine." Gabriel and Olivia exchanged shocked glances as Judge Winters continued. Dominic Blackwood's influence reached far beyond his criminal enterprises. He had judges, police officers, even politicians in his pocket. When the incident with Ethan occurred, his associates moved quickly to cover it up. They saw an opportunity for control over you, Gabriel. Gabriel's voice tightened with anger and disbelief. "Control over me? My company, my influence, my resources, everything they've manipulated from the shadows using the threat of Blackwood and the children's safety." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "And where do you fit into all this?" the judge asked, his tone softening as he looked ashamed. "I was compromised. They had information on me, on past indiscretions, and I was helping them, turning a blind eye to certain cases and influencing decisions. But using children as pawns, it's gone too far." The revelation hit Gabriel like a physical blow. The system he had always believed in and used to his advantage in business was rotten at its core, and now Ethan and Noah were caught in the middle of it. "What do they want?" Gabriel demanded. "Control of your company, initially," the judge explained simply. "But with that would come political influence, the ability to shape policies to further their criminal enterprises without fear of repercussion." Olivia stood abruptly, her face a mask of fury. "We need to take this to the FBI or someone we can trust. This goes beyond local jurisdiction." Judge Winters shook his head. "It's not that simple. The corruption runs deep. Detective Reeves, we don't know who we can trust. A heavy silence fell as the magnitude of the situation sank in. They were up against not just a criminal organization, but systemic corruption that had infected the very institutions meant to protect and serve. Gabriel's mind raced, years of business strategy kicking in. We need leverage, something big enough to blow this whole thing wide open. Judge Winters nodded slowly. I have documents and recordings. I've been gathering evidence, hoping to find a way out. But it's not enough on its own. We need more. Olivia's eyes lit up with a dangerous gleam. What if we set a trap? Use your company as bait to draw them out into the open. Gabriel nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. We could call an emergency board meeting and announce my intention to step down and hand over control of the company. That should force their hand. Judge Winters warned. It's risky. These people are dangerous and won't hesitate to eliminate any threat. Gabriel's gaze hardened as he thought of Ethan and Noah, innocent children caught in a web of adult greed and corruption. Some risks are worth taking, he declared, his voice resolute. As they hashed out the details of their plan, Gabriel felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. This was more than just a fight for his company or his own safety. It was a battle for justice, for the future of two children who had come to mean everything to him. Late into the night, as Judge Winters prepared to leave with copies of his evidence securely hidden, Gabriel pulled Olivia aside. Are you sure about this? He asked softly. Your career, your life, you're risking everything. Olivia met his gaze steadily, her hand finding his in a gesture of solidarity. Some things are more important than a career, Gabriel. What these people have done, what they're still doing, it goes against everything I believe in. I became a detective to fight against their abuses. Their eyes locked, and in that moment the connection between them deepened into something more than mere attraction or shared purpose. It was a bond forged in the fire of adversity. As dawn broke, casting a pale light over the safe house, Gabriel stood on the porch watching Judge Winters' car disappear down the driveway. The weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on his shoulders, yet he felt a strange sense of calm inside. He could hear Olivia on the phone, setting things in motion, as Ethan and Noah would soon be woken, unaware of the storm about to break around them. Taking a deep breath, Gabriel steeled himself for the battle ahead. He had spent his life building walls to protect himself from emotional entanglements. But now, with the lives of two innocent children and the very fabric of justice at stake, he was prepared to tear those walls down. Glancing at his reflection in the window, he no longer saw the cold, calculating businessman he once was. Instead, his eyes now held determination, compassion, and a fierce protectiveness. He knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would stop at nothing to protect Ethan and Noah, to bring down the corrupt system that threatened them, and to build a future where they could grow up safe and loved. With renewed resolve, Gabriel stepped back into the house, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The game had changed once again, but this time, he wasn't just playing for profit or power. He was fighting for something far more precious: the lives and futures of two children who had unwittingly stolen his heart. In the following days, a whirlwind of activity ensued. Gabriel, Olivia, and Judge Winters put their plan into motion. The safe house became a hub of covert operations, with secure communications equipment installed under the guise of upgrading Gabriel's home office for remote work. Sensing the tension in the air, Ethan and Noah became increasingly clingy, and Gabriel found himself constantly reassuring them. Are the bad men coming? Ethan would ask one night as Gabriel tucked him into bed. Gabriel paused, carefully choosing his words. Ethan, I want you to listen very carefully. No matter what happens, I promise I will keep you and Noah safe. Do you understand? Ethan nodded solemnly, his small hand gripping Gabriel's tightly. I trust you, he whispered. Those 3 words struck Gabriel like a physical blow. The weight of Ethan's trust was both terrifying and empowering. Leaning down, Gabriel gently kissed the boy's forehead, saying, Get some sleep, buddy. Everything's going to be okay. Later, as Gabriel prepared to leave for an emergency meeting at Thornton Enterprises headquarters, he found Olivia waiting in the hallway, her eyes soft with understanding. "You're really good with them," she said quietly. "They're lucky to have you." Gabriel shook his head. "I'm the lucky one. They've changed me in ways I never thought possible." Olivia stepped closer, and for a brief moment, the unspoken emotions between them filled the air. But before they could fully embrace that connection, the sound of Judge Winter's arrival broke the moment in the makeshift war room that had once been Gabriel's study. The three of them gathered around a table laden with documents and laptops. "The board meeting is set for tomorrow," Gabriel began, his voice steady despite the nervous churn in his stomach. "I've leaked information about my intention to step down and hand over control of the company. If our suspicions are correct, this should force their hand." Olivia nodded, her detective's mind already several steps ahead, with undercover agents strategically positioned throughout the building. Judge Winter's evidence had helped them identify several key players. "What about Ethan and Noah?" Gabriel asked, his thoughts never straying far from the children. "They'll be moved to a secure location just before the meeting. Only the three of us will know where they are," Judge Winters assured him. As they went over the plan one last time, Gabriel felt a mix of fear and determination. Everything hinged on their ability to outmaneuver a group of corrupt individuals who had manipulated the system for years. "There's still time to back out," Olivia said softly, her eyes meeting Gabriel's. "No one would blame you for putting the children first and walking away." Gabriel shook his head firmly, his jaw set in determination. "No. These people, this corruption, it goes beyond just me and the kids. How many other lives have they ruined? How many other children are at risk? We have to stop them." Judge Winters nodded approvingly. "It won't be easy. These people have resources and influence. They won't go down without a fight." "Then we'll give them one hell of a fight," Gabriel declared, his voice hard with resolve. As the night wore on and final preparations were made, Gabriel found himself drawn to the children's room. Standing in the doorway, he watched Ethan and Noah sleep peacefully, unaware of the storm brewing around them. In that moment, looking at their innocent faces, he made a silent vow. No matter what happened tomorrow or what it cost him, he would ensure these children had a future free from fear and corruption, a chance at a normal life filled with love and security. The sound of soft footsteps alerted him to Olivia's presence. She joined him at the door, her shoulder brushing against his in a gesture of silent support. "We should get some rest," she said quietly. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day." Gabriel nodded, but made no move to leave. "I keep thinking about how my life has changed since that night. I found them, and I was so focused on wealth and power that I thought I had everything figured out." Olivia's hand found his, their fingers intertwined naturally. Now, Gabriel said, his voice thick with emotion, "I realized I had nothing that truly mattered until these kids gave me a purpose I never knew I was missing." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching over the sleeping children, as tomorrow would bring danger, confrontation, and the potential for everything to fall apart. Yet in that moment, with Ethan and Noah safely asleep and Olivia's hand warm in his, Gabriel felt a profound sense of peace. Finally, as night deepened and Gabriel lay in bed with sleep eluding him, he thought not of the dangers ahead or the complexities of the plan, but of a future he had never dared to imagine. A future with Ethan and Noah, with Olivia by his side. A future where the walls he had built around his heart were replaced by the warm embrace of family. With that hopeful image in his mind, Gabriel finally drifted off to sleep, ready to face whatever challenges the new day would bring. The man who had once cared only for wealth and power was gone. In his place stood a man prepared to risk everything for love, for justice, and for the future of two children who had become his whole world.